Hey guys, it's time for another illustration challenge. And on this one, we're going to create a big monster with big horns. The practice is going to be a little bit different than the other challenges. Instead of speeding up the final parts, I'm going to speed up the first steps, the basic shapes, the sketching, all that stuff. And then I'm going to slow down at the parts, all the little details when I start adding gradients, lights, shadows, and all that good stuff. But before opening the computer, let's draw our little monster by hand. 1, 2, and...
Okay, so I finished all the shapes, all the basic shapes, all the circles and the hands and the horns, everything is done. Now it's time to add the little details with the gradients, the light, the shadows. And just before I start, I want to tell you that I use this color palette. These are the only colors that I'm using throughout the whole thing. I based it on the sketch. I took a photo of the sketch we made, and then I just did all the shapes. So I already named everything. I added a third eye in the middle of the forehead just to make it more monstery. And okay, so let's start with the eyes. And everything that I'm going to do is just really soft, subtle shadowing and subtle gradients, and that's how we're going to add volume to our character. And also we have to set rules of where the light is coming from. So the light, we're mostly used to see light coming from above, so let's make the light coming from above and from the left. So, well, the left of the monster, the right from us. So let's say that just for us to know, this is where the light is coming from. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it tells us a little bit of how we're going to shade everything. So around here, this is where the light is coming from, just so we know, and that's our guiding light. Let's start with the eyes. I'm going to add another gradient on top of it, on top of this color. Actually, the other way around. So the darker colors should be on the top, and just like that. And on this, I'm going to use the red that we're using. So this red, I'm going to copy the hex code, and then I'm going to go back to the gradient, and then I'm going to paste that hex code here, and now it's going to be like red eyes, like little monstery eyes. It's going to be from 50% opacity. Instead of 50, I'm going to go 40, so it's a little bit more subtle. And then I like how the light is already just like a solid white dot. Well, it's actually not white, it's our lightest color. To just duplicate this guy, I'm going to make this a little darker, just a tad darker. There you go. And that's all. See how it's just really subtle things that you have to do. And then to the whole group of the eye, I'm going to add a shadow. And this shadow is going to be really soft, like around, let's say, 16 pixels. Yeah, 16 pixels and 8 pixels below. And the opacity is going to be all the way down to 10%. Okay, so we have our eye. And now that we have one eye, we can just copy this one and put it. I'm going to delete these two, and then I'm just going to duplicate it over here, and then duplicate it over here, and then just make sure that it centers. There you go. Now everything is centered. Now let's move on to our mouth. I'm going to add a little bit of light to the tongue, just a little bit of light on the top of the tongue. So I'm going to keep that same color, and then I'm going to add a gradient, and this gradient is going to be a radial gradient, and I'm actually going to keep the one that it already has, which is the default black to white. So I'm going to keep it like that. I'm going to move it over here. Remember, the light is coming from the right, around there, probably a little bit bigger. Yeah, around that. And then now that it's like that, I'm going to change the blending mode. Instead of normal, I'm going to change it to screen. That way we still have the red below. And then instead of 100%, I'm going to change it to 50%, just so it's subtle. And then I'm going to copy this style, and then I'm going to paste it to the other shape. There you go. And I copy it just by right-clicking and then selecting copy. And right now it looks kind of weird, right? Because this one should be on top. So I'm going to move it up, and now there you go. And it's looking like a little tongue. It looks like a butt. We can add one gradient here just to make it like it's one gradient where it's darker on the top and then lighter on the bottom. So I'm going to add a gradient to a more solid color, and then I'm going to move this to the top, this color, the darker color, and then like that. And then I'm going to select, I'm going to make it, instead of normal, I'm going to make it multiply. Now that it's multiply, I'm going to change it to, I don't know, like 50%. There you go, really subtle. Now let's actually add a little bit of light to our whole body. To this solid color, that is all this shape, I'm going to add another gradient, and this gradient is going to be also a radial gradient, and it's going to be coming from, this is a really big gradient though. It's going to be coming from where our light is coming, so I'm going to move it this way, around there, and then instead of normal, I'm going to change it to screen. There you go. There you go. Let's see what happens if instead of screen I say multiply. I kind of like it dark. It's up to you. You can make it where the solid color that was below, that's the lightest color, and then you're just adding a shadow on top of it. That is one way to do it. I'm going to keep this way. I like this way. Instead of 100%, I'm going to change it to 50%. There you go. And then let's see. Now we have these hairs right here that are kind of like weird, right? So there are two things that I can do. I can combine the shapes of these hairs with the main shape, or I can try seeing if I can add the same style. Let's try adding the same style, and if that doesn't work, I'm just going to combine it with the shape. So I'm going to copy the style of the main body, and then I'm going to paste it here. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to work, but let's try it. Paste style, and it's not too bad. Not too bad. Not perfect, but not too bad. There you go. Then our hands, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to paste the style. Let's see what happens when I paste the style. I don't like the color. I want to make the hands a little bit, we can make them a little bit darker. No, it should be a little bit lighter. Around there. And now that we have them like that, there's not enough contrast between the hands and the body. So what you can do is add a shadow behind the hands because the hands are on top of the body. So I'm going to select these two, and I'm going to add a shadow. And it's already a really soft shadow, but I'm going to move it. It should be a little bit to the left. So I'm going to move it in the x-axis to the in negative. Oops. Yeah. Oh, you know what? This guy is flipped. So this guy should actually be positive, and this one should be negative. So this one is minus 20 pixels. And let's say that is 20 pixels below. 20 and 20. Minus 20 and 20 on the Y position below. And then this guy is 20, but then positive on the X position because the hand is flipped. It's the same shape as this one, but it's just flipped. And it's looking a little bit flat because we used the same light as this one, which is a gradient coming from the top. So something that I can do, I'm going to add an inner shadow. And let's see if this works. The inner shadow is going to be coming from, let me just zoom in so we can see, this coming from the left. So that way it gives it a little bit of volume, like it's rounded. So let's see, instead of shadow, I was going to add an inner shadow. Let's use that or dark color. And then, now that I have a dark color, I'm going to say that it's positive on the X position. So now you just start to see where this shadow is going to be. So just like that, and then I think this one should be 0. Let's see how it might not work because of the shapes of the fingers. But let's test it out. Now that it's like that, I'm going to add a blur of 10%, and the color I can change it to, instead of 100%, I can change it to 10%, and it's really subtle. Is there? Let's change it to 20. 10% was good. And again, it's really subtle. Probably is not necessary, but I like it. It's just a little bit of volume to it. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. It's just like, it's a little bit nervous. This monster looks more scared than whatever is trying to scare. Okay, so now let's move on to our horns. I'm going to use the same effect where it has an inner shadow that creates a volume here on the left. So I'm going to add an inner shadow, and I'm going to change it to just black, pure black. Oops, no, just pure black, and then just around there, and then negative position on the Y, probably -10 and +10. And now that it's there, I'm going to add a little bit of blur, probably, well, a lot of blur, like 16 pixels. No, 8 pixels. 8 pixels, just soft enough. And then this guy, instead of 100% the opacity, I'm going to turn it to 10%. And now it gives me that volume, a little bit of volume. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to copy the style of this, and then I'm going to paste it over here. Paste the style. Now we could add also the shadow from this horn on top of the head. So I'm going to actually draw that shape. So I'm just going to press V, and I'm going to add a shape here, and this is going to be the shape of this the horn on top of the head. And then now that we have it there, I'm going to remove the borders and add this fill, and I'm actually going to make it a gradient. And this gradient is going to be from here all the way here, just from dark to light, from the right to left. And now that it's like that, I'm going to change it from normal to multiply. And now it's multiplying the color below, but the opacity, I'm going to change it to 10%. There you go. And I'm going to put it below this, the first horn, and now it looks like it's on top of this horn. And then if we want to make it even more, we can add a shadow here. So I'm going to actually add it real quick. And this guy can be just like this. Just like that. I'm going to add black, 10% opacity. I'm going to remove the border of this. And then now that it's like that, I'm going to move it all over here. I'm going to move this all the way here, and then I'm going to group these two, and I'm going to make the body a mask. That way, the shadow is only projected on top of the body. There you go. So you can see, hold on, let me zoom in so you can see what happened. Here, I added this shape. It's being masked by the shape of the body. So that way, this little shadow is only being casted on top of the body. Small detail makes a difference. It's looking good. So look at that. We have our monster ready. It has some shadows, it has some effects, and it's looking good. Hopefully you learn how to use gradients, how to use the shadows in a creative way that allows you to add volume to your illustrations. And that's it for today. Leave in the comments any questions you have, and also join our Facebook group. I'm adding a link in the description. Hasta la próxima. Bye bye.